Hi everybody, this is Tina with Rehatch Designs. We're here for day 16 of our Advent Christmas tags, and I hope everybody's doing well. This is going to be fairly easy. I'm showing you the box that I'm using. I have some Anna Griffin cutouts that I'm using that I've had forever. And then I'm using some Stamperia paper. I believe it's their Pink Christmas or something similar to that. I don't have the cover sheet anymore, so I'm just using things that I have. So sometimes it's just bits and pieces of little different things that I've had sitting around forever. I'm looking through this right now because I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to use. And they have these little round circles in there. And for what I want to do today, I'm going to use one of those. And then I'm going to use one of the sentiments. And I think that's it. I don't know. There's another piece in there that I'm going to cut out that I may use. And I'm going to use some background paper. So that's why it's going to be fairly easy because everything's kind of already done for us. But of course, I'm not going to leave things alone. I'm going to add things to them, make them a little bit more interesting. This is another Anna Griffin die cut. I'm not even sure if it's available anymore. I just showed to you. It's of a snow globe, but I know there's tons of them out there. You can certainly pick one up, or you could even make, one yourself. You wouldn't necessarily need a die cut. So I'm cutting out this circle that I picked out, and then I'm cutting out this. It's kind of like almost like a book plate type thing, and I'm going to put the sentiment on there, and I'll be cutting that out too. It's on one of these sheets. Yeah, right there. And I cut it out, and I think I'm going to cut it out further. So I pick one that I think I'm going to use. And I've got my circle. And now I'm looking at this paper. And what I'm doing is I'm trying to pick a portion of the paper that I'm not going to cut into any of the picture part of it over there, because I may use that someday in the future. And so I'm putting some glue on my tag. And I'm just going to basically put that on there and use this paper. And that's kind of what I said before on our other tag, is that a lot of times there's so many papers out there that have that mixed media look. And even if you add to it, it gives you a really good starting point. And it's like cheating a little bit, but why not? Makes it look very involved when in fact, you're not really adding that much to it. So I'm just cutting out my tag now. I put some glue stick on it because I am going to sew around it. Otherwise, I would use a stronger glue probably. So anyway, I've got that all down, and now I'm going to go ahead and cut out my circle. It doesn't have to be perfect because the actual circle is going to be covered up, so I'm not really going for perfection here. And then I'm going to go ahead and cut out my other pieces. Get everything ready. So I've got them all ready, and now I'm going to kind of get an idea of where I'm going to place it on my tag. This is just a piece of acetate that I got from packaging, and it's fairly heavy. But what I did is I ran the die cut, the outer portion of it, with the acetate, and it didn't cut it, but what it did is it marked it so that I knew where to cut. So I cut around it, and I'm going to cut in further a little bit so that the acetate, and you can't see it. So basically just enough to where you've got something to tape to, but then that will cover it. See, it covers it now. So you can't see the end pieces. That little round disc there, okay, that was also a portion, but I'm using it to lift this up a little bit so it's not flat on the page. You won't be able to see it either because it's smaller than the actual round piece. And I'm making sure that the outer part of that is hidden. I've cut it enough. And don't worry, I'm not going to leave it red because I know you guys are sitting there thinking, well, it doesn't really go. And you're right. So now I'm looking at all of my little die cuts here. And you could cut out any die cut and do this, guys. All it is die cuts that are doubled. And in between layers, they just put some foam tape. And they're not even cut out, differently. They're exactly the same. And then there's foam tape in between them. So any digitals that you have that you want to cut out. In fact, I've done that many times. So I picked out what I want to put in there. And now I'm going to put all my pieces together. So I'm just putting the Stamperia round piece on this piece of, it's basically a cardstock. All right, so now I'm cutting out the sentiment and seeing how it'll look. And I'm actually not all that thrilled with it, but all right, we'll see. Anyway, so again, I'm kind of picturing where I want everything. All right, so of course I'm going to be doing some other things. And now what I'm doing is I am using some texture paste, and that's Vicki Boutin. And I'll show you guys what I'm using as I go. If I don't know exactly what it is, just stop the video and you'll be able to see the label. And if you still can't, then you can ask me. But anyway, I'm using some Vicki Boutin texture paste, and it's this pink color. And I'm just adding a little bit more pink to this tag. And I'm also wanting to have some texture on there so that what it does is it makes it look like all of that mixed media in the back, is something I did. I'm cheating. Okay, and all I did here is I added a little bit of gesso on there on top of it, just to kind of mute down the pink and also to add additional texture. I could have added texture paste to it, but I figured I'd just go ahead and put some gesso on there. So anyway, that's going to dry, and it will get us the look that I want. I'm going to let that dry, and then we're going to move on to the next step. So, and this is where I thought about putting glitter on it, but I changed my mind. Okay, so now that I dried it, I'm going to go ahead and use my dabber, my Ranger dabber. And this is really good for when you're doing embossing. If you're, because, you can't really take your embossing pad and do that, or a pen. It would take forever. So I really like this dabber. I really use it quite a bit. This isn't really a stencil. What it is I have some die cut snowflakes, and that's the cutout from doing them. But I'm using it as a stencil, and that's something you can think about. You can really save a lot of money in buying stencils by using your die cut negative to use as a stencil. So basically all I did is I put some embossing powder on there, some white embossing powder. And there's a spot I missed over here, so I'm going to go ahead and dab that a little bit, and then go ahead and put another snowflake on there. And I'm just using the Glacier White again. So now I'm just kind of dusting off any spots that have too much. And of course I'm going to go ahead and heat it up and emboss it. And then there are my snowflakes. And I heated it up again and added some little sparkly uh, embossing powder on it. And that's just to make it glisten a little bit. Okay, so now I've got my round piece of my snow globe that's red. That doesn't match at all. So I'm going to take some of my Rub 'n Buff, and I'm just going to go ahead and use it as paint, basically, and just kind of dab it on and cover this red ring. I could have, just recut it out and did it in gold, but I was going to do something with it anyway to where you couldn't really see it. So I figured it really didn't matter what color it was, and I already had it cut out, so I'm going to go ahead and use it that way. So anyway, now what I'm going to do is I am going to make sure that I let the gold dry. And I'm dusting off my card again, or my tag, to make sure I get all the extra off. And now I'm taking my Rub 'n Buff, and I'm going to go ahead and go all the way around the edges. And of course, I'm not trying to be perfect or anything like that. In fact, I'm going out of my way to not be. And I'm just using it just like you would use any type of, like your vintage photo or whatever. I'm just using gold. And I'm going all the way around my tag. And I'm going to be doing more later, but this is like the first layer. So you knew I couldn't just leave it the way it was, right? So anyway, we're going all the way around it. And by now, I think my little round thing probably is dry. The Rub 'n Buff does not take very long to dry. So I'm just filling in any spots I missed. Although we're going to do another step to this, and it probably wouldn't have made that much difference. This is just really a way to change the color easily, because that Rub 'n Buff really does cover really well. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Versamark, and I'm taking both pieces of the snow globe, and I'm just basically put it on paper and stamping the Versamark on it and get it nice and juicy. So it basically is just covering the entire thing. And the bottom portion was already made with gold paper, so I didn't have to do anything to it. But of course they don't match because one's in Rub 'n Buff and one's not. So now I just took some gold embossing powder, and I'm going to cover that up with the embossing powder. And I missed a spot, so I'm going to go ahead and go back in and make sure I get it. Put that aside. And now I'm going to do the bottom portion of the snow globe, so they will match. All right. I'm trying really hard not to get my fingers all over it and taking the stuff off. But okay, so now I'm just going to heat emboss them. And a lot of these steps may seem like, well, it's already gold or whatever. Well, the heat embossing looks very different than just the gold paper. And having the gold underneath it, in case, you have any little spots that's not all the way through, it will show gold underneath. Now I'm going around my edges that I've already put the gold Rub 'n Buff on, and I'm using my dabber, it works really good for that too. And I'm taking the same gold powder, heat embossing powder, and I'm going to go all the way around the edges. And I'm just using a little brush to get any of the extra off that in places that I don't want it to be. I'm going to go all the way around my tag and keep, dusting off any places I don't want it to be. And again, I'm not trying to get it a perfect edge. I want it a little raggedy. But I still don't want it to be all over the tag. So anyway, so I do that all the way around, and then of course I heat emboss that. So now I've got all those pieces ready to go, and I'm trying to position things as I want them. I thought about putting that tree in there, but it really covered up the houses and everything in the background. And that was kind of the whole point in using that piece of the scrapbook paper because it has a whole little village behind it. So I end up just using the guy pushing the girl on the sled. I thought it was really sweet, and I thought the colors behind it were perfect. So now I'm using some foam tape, a thinner foam tape, and I'm just going around my piece of acetate that I have. And that is going to allow me, you have to have a tiny bit of a gap between your acetate and your picture. Otherwise, your shaker card or your shaker globe or whatever is not going to work. So now I'm putting some mica flakes in there, and I'm also putting I have some kind of mica sequins. And the reason I'm doing both is the sequins are heavier and they'll move up and down, whereas the flakes, for the most part, they're not going to move that much, but they are going to like settle toward the bottom of the globe, and it'll make it look like there's snow on the ground. So I'm putting all of that in my little acetate and trying to not get it on the edges. Okay, so then now I'm going to go ahead and glue everything down, put my my little people inside and position them. Okay, so now that we've got it all in there, I'm shaking it around just to see how it looks, and I think it looks great. So now what I'm going to do is I just put the gold on the outside, and I've got my little piece that I cut out, and I'm realizing it's probably not going to work. So I just decide, you know what? I'm going to add this pink ribbon. I haven't glued down that gold piece yet. I just kind of positioned it to see, what it was going to look like. And the big thing, too, I was also making sure that I had the tape in there on the foam tape in the right spot so you couldn't see it. I'm cutting this pink lace in half because what I want to do here is I am covering the part of the acetate that is not covered with the gold on the side. I mean, I know it's kind of, a little picky, but what it'll do is you will not be able to see any of that because it is rising. It's up higher than just the paper. Now, I could have went around and painted it gold over there, but I kind of thought that the pink peeking out the side would look really pretty. So now I'm just putting some glue on the bottom part of the snow globe. And I'm getting everything positioned the way I want it. Getting it all glued down. And now I'm going to glue down the last part of the snow globe. I'm making sure there's no glue on the front of it because, little strings of glue get everywhere. And now I'm going to just put this part down. Okay, so now I'm trying to figure out where to put the numbers. I'm telling you, figuring out where to put those numbers has become an issue. And then I decided, I really don't like that that's cutout that I was going to use for this sentiment because it was really too big. So I found another one, and I think it'll work perfect. So this one says joy. At first, I'm going to put it on top, but then I realized I think I'm crowding everything all in there, and I don't like that. So I decided not to do that. So now what I decide to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put my eyelet in before I make a decision as to where I want to put the number and the sentiment because I think the eyelet takes up a little room and I want to make sure I have enough room. So I put it on there again, and I'm putting some gold rub and buff around the edges, just a little bit, and I'm kind of purposely doing it messy with my fingers. I do that a lot because I don't know, I'm not because everything else I've done is I've gone out of my way to not make it perfect. I just don't think it would work. And now I'm taking the leftover Rub and Buff and putting it on the numbers. And that what that does is it gives it some texture, and it also makes the gold kind of, I wouldn't say match, but look a little bit more vintage and go a little bit more with the rest of the tag. So now I decide I'm going to put my sentiment down, and I decide to use some foam tape because everything else has popped up a little bit, and I just think it needs to be, not just glued down onto the tag. So I put it on top, and I don't know, it didn't work. So I start to glue down my numbers, and I always put some glue down with those. And anyway, I take this off on top because I don't think it works. So now I'm going to glue down the numbers on top, and I put the sentiment on the bottom, and I'm much happier with that. Much, much happier. I think it just looks a lot more balanced to me. Okay, so now I decided I am going to put my ribbon on top, and I'm using the same Peak Vintage ribbon or lace that I had around the snow globe. And you can barely see it around there, but you can see it. So now I have a few little pieces of bling that I am going to put on the bottom of the snow globe because to me it's just screaming for it. And I've got this little pink heart that I'm putting in the middle. And then I've got a pink pearl and some pink little blingy things that kind of match the heart. And it goes beautifully on the bottom. So anyway, guys, that's it. So stay tuned for tag number 17 and take care.